EMOTA, today at the European e-commerce conference, we released the latest statistics on e-commerce, and European e-commerce is growing 20% in 2012, and it's reaching 300 billion euros. We are very delighted about this impressive growth, especially in such a difficult economic context. E-commerce is growing very fast throughout Europe.
We were lucky enough today to have a wide variety of stakeholders who were able to provide perspectives on challenges and opportunities with respect to e-commerce in Europe. The day began with a series of keynote addresses from several high-level officials representing business, incoming Irish presidency. The European Commission, Pierre Delsaux, was nice enough to join us. Irish Minister Pat Rabbitte was here. Hein Pretorius, CEO of IMAH Allegro, was here providing perspectives of business. And again, the ambassador to the EU from the US, Ambassador Kennard, who was able to provide a bit of a transatlantic perspective that I think we all found quite useful.
We intend to promote the digital economy and the digital single market by making progress on issues spanning a number of councils, including intellectual property rights, cyber security, e-identification, data protection, and very importantly, the costs associated with the rollout of high-speed broadband.
Let me start by asking a very fundamental question. Why do we talk about e-commerce? Why do we attach so much importance to e-commerce? I'm sure the answer is obvious for you, but is it obvious for everybody? Is it obvious for the rest of Europe? And that's a key element that we need to take into account when we talk about e-commerce.
What occurs to me, having been here for a while now, is that when you talk to policymakers in Brussels, they're very smart people in this town. They know what to do. They know what needs to be done in order to deepen and complete the single market, to create the digital single market. The challenge, as I think you all know, is the gap between the policy proposals and the implementation.
I'm a true believer that the internet sector is a driver of future growth, and specifically in Europe. And recent studies that have been conducted by McKinsey Global Institute and the Boston Consulting Group bears this out. Over the past 5 years, the internet's contribution to GDP growth in mature European markets, not the emerging Europe, which is even higher, has been 21% on average. That's a massive driver of growth that we need to be taking hold of.
We had our first panel of the day, which focused on realizing the potential of e-commerce in Europe, thereby addressing some of the existing barriers and priorities for businesses and consumer groups and policymakers in terms of addressing not only the barriers but unlocking the potential and growth opportunities of e-commerce in Europe.
We meet here, as you have noticed during the opening session, we are here in order to change the world, not to describe the problems, we all know about them. We must change them, and we shouldn't be afraid of that.
In my eternal modesty, I will try and say a few things and hopefully provoke some discussion, because I think that's the role of this panel, not to overwhelm you with slideshows and masses of information, but to provoke some discussion.
Every 200 or 300 years something comes along that's completely disruptive. It just changes everything. We've got the internet. And we're struggling with the impact and the way it's affecting so many things in such deep ways. And we'll be struggling with that for some years to come.
Many thanks for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be at the Forum Europe Conference on e-commerce.
Today's conference was certainly very important because we have a feeling that we were able to touch certain issues and to convince some of our guests, and in particular politicians, that we need to address consumers' needs and we need to give them choice, because we can't dictate them what they're supposed to do, when they should consume and what they should consume.
I think today's panel was very important because it focused very much on the key issue for us, and I think for many other players, around commerce and around e-commerce, which is choice.
We began the afternoon with a speech from MEP Pablo Arias Echeverria, who presented some of his priorities working within the Internal Market Committee in the Parliament to once again drive the growth of e-commerce in Europe and achieving really a digital single market.
We live in times of immense challenges. with a serious global crisis, especially in Europe, when it is necessary more than ever to innovate and make improvements that allow us to reinvent ourselves. Today, we aim to achieve the long target about economic growth and to create jobs and allow our families to get out of the difficult situation in which many find themselves.
Each year at the European e-commerce conference, a member of a European policy community who is involved in support and development of e-commerce is presented with European e-commerce award. I'm extremely proud to inform you that 2012 European e-commerce award is going to Werner Stenk.
It's a great honor, especially since I've been doing that only for 1.5 years. But I must say it feels much longer than that, which is not only due to the very quick and development in this industry, but also because I've been talking to so many people also in this room that it really feels as if I've been doing that for much longer, and I hope I will be around for much longer still. So thank you very much again.
I was completely overwhelmed because I didn't know that I was getting this award. I was sitting in the audience and they were saying all sort of nice things about someone, and then that someone turned out to be myself, and I'm really flattered and honored. It's only been 1.5 years that I've been in charge of this agenda, and so I really see this as a recognition of my efforts and modest attempts to bring about some change in this sector to the benefit of all. So I'm very, very flattered and impressed by this.
We had a panel discussion focusing on payments and logistics, two areas that are vital to e-commerce, and which we continue to see some barriers, regulatory and otherwise, that participants were able to discuss and debate with representatives from the European Commission and postal services and payment providers.
My wish would be that my dear MEPs and the council representative in the Working Party transform themselves and get into a parcel to see how it really works in practice, going from one border to another border, borderless, and to see how postal operations actually work in practice before thinking how they work. Thank you.
Don't forget the holes in the box, please, yeah? Sampo.
I must admit that I won't promise you that.
I very much enjoyed the panel. I think you brought a very good perspective on really the fundamental problems of consumers and merchants while doing e-commerce, payments and logistics, and offer a very good perspective to everyone on where the industry stands as we speak, and the practical hurdles that we're going through in allowing consumers and merchants to ship and to receive payments and to receive goods and to shop seamlessly both domestically and cross-border.
This event comes at a unique time because it gives us the leeway to talk with the Commission, with the Parliament, and I would say e-commerce people to see how postal operators can enable the strategy of the European Commission.
At the end of the day, one of the current proposals that's being discussed in Brussels is, of course, the reform of data protection rules. So we had a panel that was devoted to the implications of those rules for e-commerce in particular.
What does change also with the new data protection, the general data protection regulation? What is the change for e-commerce, and how is the impact exactly? That's a question which people would like to know, and I think it's a concern which we should also somehow address also with the new regulation. So how do you think that?
All right, so the focus is not now on cookies, but on the general picture of data protection in an environment which is increasingly digital.
We propose one single law, a regulation, which is a revolution in this aspect. I'm not asking who of you has read the 91 articles, but I'm sure we will discuss a lot of those articles in the podium later on. One single law means one single law, one text which you can put under your arm and tell, this is the data protection rules I have to apply, and nothing else.
I think that we are in one of the most exciting times that any privacy lawyer can have, and in the sense of, and also for a company like mine where data is so important because we drive innovation on the basis of data. First of all, I think that there needs to be, and everyone recognizes that the reform that we're embarking is very much needed, that we need to make it happen.
It was interesting to find out that 42% of those we interviewed in the UK feel more favorable towards online behavioral advertising and online ads, so long that these ads are actually providing them with a tool that will allow them to actually control whether or not they want to be tracked.
In Brussels, there is almost 1 or 2 privacy events per week. And really, this panel is very good. And I really, believe me, I've got a lot of experience here. It's a very interesting panel because first, the audience pay a lot of attention to what we said, which is not the case everywhere. And I think it was very good to have both persons from the Parliament at an important and interesting level, Commission, Data Protection Authority, and business.
Overall, we were very pleased with the day. We're always pleased with an opportunity to have so many stakeholders come together and talk about all of these different issues and some of the barriers and experiences that we've all seen. I think we had a large agreement on the incredible opportunity for economic growth and improved consumer choice and convenience that e-commerce has to offer. And I think we're getting closer to starting to come to agreement on where the priorities should be placed in terms of addressing legal and logistic barriers that still prevent some of that growth from occurring.